Alright, what is up guys? It is your boy the Fruit coming back to you with yet another video, and in today's video, as we await the end of the 2-month break that we're going to be receiving for the Boruto manga, I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna be very dry out here. Yeah, we're going to be finding all sorts of content to try and make. I mean, we're not just going to sit here and do nothing. And as I was scrolling upon Twitter, I actually saw this interesting set of information from Twitter, and that is of course Q&A questions from the man himself, Ikimoto. And I thought that was pretty amazing because Kishimoto and Ikimoto are the ones that are actually writing and directing and also drawing the story right now, specifically Ikimoto. And he has made a lot of great decisions when it comes to the writing of the Boruto story. And so we finally have what could be some very interesting information because they asked him some questions and he gave some answers. So these are some pretty great Q&As. I thought they were just interesting because I think it would be pretty interesting to add in there a few facts to learn about a lot of these characters, especially since with Two Blue Vertex, we kind of don't get a lot of that. A lot of the facts that we already know, a lot of them come from Naruto Next Generation. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and that's exactly what I'm going to do in today's video. We're going to be taking a look at some Q&As from the writers of Boruto, some very interesting information. This reminds me of Club Outside. If you didn't know, that's Bleach's fan page where you can actually ask questions, and Tite Kubo himself, the author, he goes ahead and answers the questions, gives some pretty amazing information. So while a lot of you guys are complaining and saying, hey, where's the anime? We don't care about the questions. We want the anime. When is the manga coming back? I think some of this information is actually pretty important. So let's go straight into this. Follow me as we go through the Q&As. I'm going to be giving my reaction. I think this will be pretty fun. But yeah, without further ado, let's get straight into it. Hit that sub button, hit that like button. But yeah, let's get straight to it. Alright, so basically what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be going through the most interesting questions that I think, because they're pretty much jumbled up. And I think the first interesting question and answer that I saw from all of this was a question where someone asked, please tell us your favorite male character and female character, Ikimoto sensei. And the answer to this is very interesting because it does make you wonder, what does he mean by this? Because he responds by saying, sorry, this doesn't really answer the question, but for now it's a secret. I don't want readers to be unnecessarily biased, and my opinion of the characters often changes depending on how the story develops at any given time. If there's an opportunity after the series is finished, it might be interesting to reveal my final personal ranking, since that alone isn't much to answer. The characters I find difficult to draw lately are Kawaki and Chocho. Conversely, the easiest for me to draw are middle-aged and elderly men. Hey yo, Ikimoto, what does that even mean? Okay, so when I look at this question and answer, I think it's very interesting to me because, for one, yes, I like the fact that Ikimoto is actually hiding from us who his or her, their favorite character could be. I think that is very interesting because, again, like he's saying, it does definitely take away from people saying, oh, he's biased to this character. I think a good example is, like, let's say Ikimoto said, I like Inujin. People are going to slander Ikimoto because I know there are people who hate Inogen, right? They hate him because he likes Himawari. They're like, oh no, this guy's a bomb, he's a fraud. Obviously he's not. The switch up is real, he's the GOAT. But regardless of what I'm saying, you kind of get what I'm trying to say. Like, this is very interesting. I like the fact that he's very unbiased, and very interesting to hear him say he finds Kawaki hard to draw. Considering, it kind of makes sense. Kawaki has the black hair and the white hair. We know as a mangaka, drawing black hair is probably a lot more annoying. And then there's also the fact that he has the scientific ninja tools, the karma, the fits. I don't know. There could be something behind that. Chocho is a very interesting choice, I would say. But I find it weird for him to say elderly men. It kind of makes sense. When it comes to characters like Ashin Koji, Bug, and a lot of the older characters, like Ikimoto has a finesse when it comes to drawing these characters, draws them perfectly, and it just goes to show how much his art has improved. But I think let's move on to the next question. Okay, so the next one I would say is probably the most interesting question because it does give a lot of insight into pretty much what's been going on in between that 3-year period after the omnipotence was put into the story, and of course Boruto and Sasuke had to run away. So this question says, after omnipotence, what did the people around Sarada think of her words and actions? Also, I'd like to know in detail how Sarada spent those 3 years. It's a very good question considering how you would think that Sarada is probably one of the characters that went through a lot. Remember, let's not forget, because of omnipotence, right? And Sasuke assisting Boruto to escape. I'm pretty sure a lot of people now kind of just went to seeing Sasuke as the usual traitor. Let's not forget, even after he was set free after the fourth Great Ninja War, it said that a lot of people just never really trusted him in general, or they just didn't like his demeanor, right? You see it in the manga. There are a lot of chapters, especially Naruto Next Generations, around the beginning of the Code arc, where if Sasuke is interacting with other fellow shinobi, they kind of just called him names like Uchiha, or they just didn't really mess with him, which is kind of racist. I'm not gonna lie, that is kind of crazy. But yeah, the answer to this is very interesting. The answer says Sumire, who likewise escaped the effects of omnipotence, deliberately tried to avoid conspicuous words and actions, but Sarada held nothing back and continued telling people the truth exactly as it was. On top of that, with her father Sasuke having left the village together with Boruto, she must have faced extremely harsh treatment from those around her. There were people probably, there were probably things like graffiti on the walls of her house and slander directed at her. To begin with, even before the omnipotence incident, there were people who were already against Sasuke. There were already a certain number of people who thought poorly of Sasuke. Her mother Sakura must have gone through a difficult time as well. But like Sasuke, she continued to stand by Sarada. Wow. Wow. This is enough to make a grown man cry. I don't know what to tell you. This is touching, and it makes sense. I did make a video, my previous video, I made a video talking about who could potentially be the next Hokage. I did bring Sakura in there as like a potential candidate, but I did say that wouldn't work because she is Sasuke's wife, and people hate Sasuke already as it is because he betrayed the village. So obviously they wouldn't consider someone who is related to a traitor, right? And so it is very interesting how I think it's actually interesting how they never really brought this into the story, where we're kind of trying to understand the aftermath of like Sarada after Sasuke left. I think this is something that you would think they would put as like a flashback into the story, like how Boruto has been getting a lot of flashbacks. I hope maybe in the anime's adaptation this is something we could see, but this is very interesting, and it really goes to show how much of a go-to character Sarada is, because she kind of embodies Naruto in a lot of ways, because when you look at Naruto's past as a kid, and I'm not saying Naruto and Sarada have the same childhood. I know people going to say, oh, he didn't have no parents. I get that. But in a lot of ways, it's interesting because a lot of people had him under scrutiny. They didn't like him. And it's crazy how Sarada probably faced a lot of hate, slander, like Hikimoto saying, to the point where you're waking up to your house being painted with graffiti is crazy. I would say this raises even more questions for a lot of the friends on Sarada. I'm talking about, obviously, Team 10 and a lot of other characters. We'll get to that because there actually is a question relating to Team 10, which I thought was very interesting. But, damn, this is a very interesting, and I think, again, it really goes to show how good she is. But let's get straight to the next question. I think that's pretty interesting. Okay, so the next one here says, how did Himawari come to be trained by the three members of the Inoshikacho? Now, let's not forget, they're pretty much the ones who have kind of shaped her into the character she is. And I think the answer that we're about to read here goes back to the question that I previously read about Sarada and why I said we're going to get to that. Very, very interesting to see how a lot of characters kind of side with Sarada. So it says here, after omnipotence, Himawari was worried about Boruto and sought advice from Sarada, who was taking his side. However, because Sarada was in the situation described above within the current Konoha, the three members of the Inoshikocho became concerned about Himawari and urged her to distance herself from Sarada. Gradually, Himawari began spending more time with Team 10, and in order to become a source of strength for Boruto, she began shinobi training alongside Team 10. That is very interesting. I mean, it makes sense. We know before Boruto kind of came back to the village, Team 10 hated Boruto. And it's sad because when you look at the anime dynamic, we know that Boruto and Shikadai are like the closest of friends. Probably like the best duo in the show before the time skip, right? It's actually insane to see how, and it makes sense, it's omnipotence. But again, like I was saying, it links up to that Sarada thing. I find it very interesting it really goes to show just how much Himawari's character has always been solidified around the fact that she was always worried about Boruto. We assume that she sees Boruto as Kawaki, obviously. So I'm very happy to see that even after everything that happened, even though she sees Boruto is kawaki, she still feels worried for him. And you see that in the story where it's like she kind of figures that out. I'm assuming Sarada tried everything, trying to tell her, yo, you know, this is what's happening, omnipotence, but obviously we know omnipotence is too strong to break from. So she was probably like, what the hell is she talking about? But I thought this is interesting. We get to the next question here. It says, around when did Inujin start to like Himori? Now, this is one of the questions that I actually I don't want to talk about it, but I do think that the dynamic they have makes sense. But the answer to this is he only started becoming conscious of her recently, likely because they began spending more time together through training and missions. Himori is capable enough to handle herself in household matters and has an independent mindset, so she gives those around her an impression of being more mature than her actual age, and Inujin first came to admire those qualities in her, and that admiration gradually developed into romantic feelings. Okay. You know what? We're gonna move on with that one. I have nothing to say. Um, but other than that, pretty much a lot of the other Q&A questions, they're kind of just normal questions. Someone also asked, how is the physique of a Shinju determined? Is it related to the physique of a human? And he said, basically, yeah, they end up roughly the same size as the human they originated from. However, some kilograms are larger, and those may end up bigger than the original human. This is everything that you know, just some more information about the Shinju. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this. I think it's pretty hilarious, but also sad at the same time for a lot of these other characters like Sarada, of course. I thought that was pretty sad. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. If you enjoyed this video, hit that sub button, that like button. Without further ado, it's been a video from me, and I'll see you in another one.